Please be safe. Not a good day. This fire happened in the afternoon, and around 5 o'clock, so all the evening news channels were going. Most of them had helicopters. So they're hovering probably, I don't know, maybe 10% of the off-duty firefighters were watching the news. One of the NBC affiliate, Channel 12, in our community, they would oftentimes, and the helicopter pilot was really cool, he was a good friend of the fire department, he would always put on our tactical channel when they were doing a story. And it was good because the people can hear us talking on the radio, it was good PR. Well, he's doing the same thing on this one, and while, I don't know, 15, 20 firefighters are watching it, Brett Tarver Mayday comes over on Channel 12 News at 5:15. So it's telegraph, telephone, telefirefighter. So the 10 or 15 that were watching the Channel 12 News or the wives, they did the telephone tree, and probably 15 minutes later, I'm betting 80% of the Phoenix firefighters that were off duty, and the ones on duty, were watching this on the news. I was talking to my brother about the last half hour of the call, and we were just trying to figure out what was going on. Monday morning quarterbacking. And then as the ambulance was leaving with Tarver to the hospital, the helicopter was following to the hospital, my brother told me, he says, this is going to change the Phoenix Fire Department, and he hung up the phone. So we were all acutely aware of what had just happened to our fire department. So from the moment that they took him to the hospital, we started this Tarver recovery process. And my dad was out of town. He was back east somewhere. Took the red eye into Phoenix, got in about midnight, 1 o'clock. He told him to take me right to the incident site. So it's still smoldering, and he's walking through it. And my dad had been to a lot of line of duty death rodeos throughout his career. And he had seen what a line of duty death could do to a fire department, rip it to shreds, the internal turmoil that would cause. Any firefighter death does that, whether it's on the job or off. And he did not want that to happen to our fire department. What was he worried about? This was a C-shift fire. Who taught saving our own training? A-shift. Who was coming on the next morning? A-shift. What was he worried? And he needed to be worried about it. What was he worried about A-shift's reaction?
That they failed.
We could have saved them. And it was the C-shifters. The angry cleaning ladies could not save them, but we could have done it. That's what he was terrified of. That's the stuff that rips the fire department. He's walking through this. It looks like Beirut bombing in there. The storm room, that L-shaped, that morning they had got their weekly deliveries, 2 semi-full in their storeroom. So they have stock stacked 8 feet. It's hard to tell here, but he's walking through their turnout coats, there's SCBAs, there's bunker boots, gloves, it's strewn out. It looks like a bomb went off. So in the morning, he says in the morning, I want every Phoenix firefighter dispatched down here first alarms, every hour. Bring them down here, every firefighter in Phoenix is going to walk through this building. So it was A shift the next day, they started. B shift, we come down there, we're in the second wave, 9 o'clock. We had an arson investigator who the guy was an asshole, but he was the perfect person to be the tour guide because he was unemotional, he had no affect, he was very clinical, and what he went through with every group, and he said these were the lines, this is where they found Tomlinson, this is where they found Tarver, and Mike Tomlinson they pulled out, and he was in respiratory arrest, and they thought he was going to just be dead, because when we pull victims out of a fire, their best chance of survival is us getting them revived before they get to the hospital. We've interviewed several ER docs that when we bring somebody in that's dead from the products of combustion, they have never successfully revived somebody that we've brought them dead. They're dead when they get there. The best chance they have is for us to save them right there. So Tomlinson, they just revived him as they were pulling him to the hospital, and they thought he was dead. And the doctor said he had the highest CO rating that they ever seen that somebody survived. So we really had 2 firefighter fatalities there. We just brought one of them back. So this guy's explaining it all to everybody. So there's 30 firefighters walking around listening to this person, and it took them about half hour, 35 minutes to get through it, and then it was saying, just look around, you know, collect your thoughts, and then you guys got to go for the next group coming in. So I'm listening to them very intently because I wanted to know what was going on there. So I'm kind of focused on him, and after he's done with his speech, he says, okay, you guys just mill around, you got to be out here in 10 minutes. I start looking around at the other firefighters there. There are guys on the ground sobbing. There are people that trained me, old salt soldiers, that they're up against the wall with the 1,000-yard stare. And so as the scene's kind of absorbing into my brain, and I'm starting to like bring it through, it was the first time in my career. I had 19 years on the job when this fire happened. I retired with 26 on. It was the first time that I ever said to myself, really, that I could die doing this job. I had never, ever said that to myself where it really, I was serious. You know, we had close calls and the whole 9 yards. But this, I said, wow, man, we can really die doing this. We went back to the station, and we didn't have any non-essential communication probably for the next 2 weeks. We walked around the station like zombies. And the only time we talked to each other is if we had to talk to each other. So it was one of the smartest things I've ever seen my old man do, was doing the walkthrough. Because what did it do to our workforce? It slammed it right down, man. And then we became very receptive, and I said it earlier, we were cowboys in a rodeo, man. Fires existed for us. We weren't there for the community to save it. We were there to get our adrenaline rush, to self-actualize. You guys know it, don't you? It put us in a different frame of mind after that. So we were very receptive to fixing ourselves after this call. So next week, they form a bunch of committees. The first one we did was the investigative, and we had to do a standard report because you had NIOSH, OSHA, the NFPA, the Daughters of the American Revolution. Everybody was coming to Phoenix because Phoenix was regarded as one of the best fire departments in the country. And the almighty have fallen, haven't they? We should have killed 20 people in that building. If it was any other building than a 1959 cold rolled steel truss girder beams, we would have killed 20 people. We would have been the next Worcester. So we had a lot of people coming in, and we had to filter through the whole deal. Another thing, as a department, we felt terrible that it took 50 plus minutes to get Tarver out of that building. So we had to get a set of equipment that we could package firefighters up very quickly and get them out of buildings, because we were living in a fantasy world before that. So we had to get equipment, and then every piece of equipment, you had to train on it, and then after the training was over, we had to do a set of SOPs on it. My dad was huge on SOPs. He liked black and white things and eliminate the gray. But all of this, the economy was doing very well that time of the country. And then what happened in 9/11? What did the American spirit toward firefighters rise to? Oh, it was the highest level. Everyone loved firefighters. So we had this Tarver fire, and the community support was tremendous coming into Phoenix. So the city council couldn't say no to my dad, and then 9/11 happened. So he had to bring other people with him to help carry the bags of money out of City Hall, because he was raping and pillaging as much as he could get from these people. So it was millions of dollars that the city gave my old man to fund into this recovery process. And if it would have happened, if this fire would have happened in 2008, none of this stuff would have happened. It was just the stars all aligned, where we had the community support, the finances, and a workforce that was ready to change their organizational habits. So here's the Tarver report. When I left Phoenix, it was over 5 years after this fire. There was over 300 downloads of this call report. And I think it also gave OSHA, I should say NIOSH, right after this report, NIOSH stopped their copy and paste. You know how most line of duty deaths look like a copy and paste? But the way we did this report, NIOSH kind of took it, and it made their conclusions they changed the way they did line of duty depth reports. So here's the alpha side up here, they dragged a dry line in, right? It was you heard there 300 feet from the alpha side to this fire area. And there was no smoke in the store. You know those hanging plastic things, the drapes? It's when they went through the drapes, that whole area was full of smoke. So they leave, they go out, get a dry line, come in, and they charge it. So you got a dry line, what do you do with the extra line that you brought in that you don't need at the point of attack? They're off the side, it's bundled there. What happens when you charge the dry line? It starts looping, doesn't it? Now if you pulled it in there straight and you only need 175 feet, it would have been a pretty, it might have done some essence, but it's not going to loop. But with that extra 150 feet basically, it looped. And I was an engineer for 7 years. When we pulled in dry lines and they said charge it, what we would do is we'd give them 300 psi the first 5-10 seconds we charge the line. What would that 300 psi do to the line? We get the kinks out, it would loop it, but whatever, and then once we saw that it kind of stabilized at 300, we back it down to the nozzle pressure. So what happened was, as these are looping down these aisles, what's it doing to the grocery shelves? It is ripping stuff off the grocery shelves. So now you got your exit path out of the building is covered with peanut butter, jelly, mayonnaise, boxes of cereal, beans, rice, and there's a pile over it. So anybody that was trying to get out of there, and I'm going to follow couplings out, they're looped. What does that do to you? Where you're trying to get out and you're just doing this, and then you go a little further. There were guys that were bailing out that says, if I read the couplings wrong, I'm going to die in here. So it was not, I'm telling you, it's Beirut. But here's where they found Tarver, and then Tomlinson, that he went into the freezer, and he shut the door. But the freezer was still compromised, but it was less worse than outside of it. And so they found him unconscious here, and they tried to get him out of the store through the alpha side to start out with, because that's the way he came in at. But you saw the fire conditions in that rolling. It was just, they had to go the shortest path. And this part of the roof had started to burn off, so this was a much more intense fire than was going back here. Not that this wasn't rolling back here, but it was a bad deal. And you guys saw this is where they brought him out, and then when Tarver came out of here, he had his underwear on. And they had, in the tour that we had afterwards, they showed where all those turnouts were spread out through as the rescuers were ripping them off of them. And you heard him say in the video, it was like trying to get somebody out of a building that was nailed down on the floor. Well, I could have told them that because we took Aaron Ernsberger on every drill that we had, and it was just like trying to move somebody nailed down to the floor. We were living in fantasy. So we were ready to change. One of the things that we looked at everything on the market, and we had a suggestion box on the Phoenix Fire Department, and any good idea was entertained. And we were processing thousands of good ideas. We looked at everything out there on packaging up firefighters to get them out of the building. And it was like 2 or 3 months into it, this one guy who did a lot of other equipment for us made these ropes. And they were about, 4 feet long as a loop. And we started practicing with these, and you could double the loops up to where you could get a handle right on them, so you could just pick them up. And you'll see in a video later that had the loops too long. So everything that we did, we had to do classroom for it, and then we had to do skills for it, and then we had to get multi-company skills. We really loved these ropes because your side bunker pockets, everybody had 2 ropes, 1 in each pocket. So you're actually bringing your packaging equipment into the hazard zone with you. So you don't have to wait for somebody to bring something in, because you can start the process right there. And we spent thousands of hours practicing packaging up firefighters and getting them out of the building. And we did it because as a workforce, we were ashamed of ourselves. We did not get Tarver out of that building. So we were motivated to fix ourselves. We worked with all the manufacturers, with all the PPE. The fall man harness, firefighter harness, was a globe we worked with. This is a good option if you have level terrain. So if you have nice slippery concrete, You got a straight shot, a firefighter's down, grab that and start pulling them out. It works effectively. But if you have rocky terrain, that's not gonna get anybody anywhere. How do we figure that out? By drilling another thousands of hours on the fallen man harness. So we knew that if it was a straight shot, it would work, but we knew that we had to use the rescue loops because if we had to get that firefighter over any debris, the fallen firefighter harness was not gonna work. Also, if you deploy this, you've got to send that turnout in to have it rewoven into the coat. Because we were drilling with it one day, we just jam it all back in there, hang the coat up. Next shift we come in, we drill on it again. Well, the next time we deploy it without putting it back in there right, it becomes a noose. Please quit pulling that. So if you deploy it, send your coat in to turnout coat guru so they can repack the thing. Rig bag improvements. Phoenix, this is Phoenix, and around Phoenix are 28 other cities. Population of over 4 million people, one central dispatch location. Everybody used the same ops manual, same common radio channels. It was one really county fire department. But when you're doing a transfill bag for 28 other fire departments, SCBAs, what does that look like? You got Scott, MSA, Drager. There was another odd name one. Anybody wants? Yeah, I think that was it. Different quick fill connects back then and been standardized. This took a huge focus, was the airbag. And then once we got the airbag technology, now we had a tree of couplings in the airbag that you had to pick. Okay, this is a Tempe firefighter having a mayday. I'm going to get the Tempe transfill connection. But so we've got on steroids on packaging, and then we get the air transfill. So now we practice packaging, and then another crew coming in where their only responsibility was getting air to that down firefighter. Again, transfill. We did it millions of times across the valley. Was practicing with this bag so that when we really needed it, it would work. And then we had another rig bag that had all the specialty tools and the glow sticks and all the neat stuff. All the tools. Well, that ended up off the engine companies, and I went just on the battalion rig because guys would come in, they'd get their work done, and they were going to do a rig job in the afternoon. And they'd say, hey, got a rig job, bring in the rig back. So we ended up with a lot of tools and things missing, and it became very expensive to maintain this rig bag out in the field. So they put this on the BC rigs. And the BCs would put all their accountability stuff in here. So when a battalion chief would show up and get the sign forward, they would bring this rig bag. Any on-deck unit that's assigned to on deck would bring every truck had one of these. They would bring the transfill bag, and they would bring as many spare air cylinders as they could to that entry point. So that's kind of how we did the rig bags, but probably if you look money-wise, this was one of the most expensive parts of the whole recovery process, was the air management piece of it. We had 2 thermal imaging cameras on the Phoenix Fire Department when that fire occurred, and they were both at the academy, and we used them for recruit accountability during training burns. So we had very little experience with thermal imaging cameras. This was my favorite part of the recovery. We did like 4 months on just how to use them, but then we had live fire training. That, oh, by the way, was led by the Mighty Shift Warriors. They led everything in the recovery process. Heads up air display. We love Scott, man. They came in there, and Scott really did a lot of stuff with us during this period, and we came up with a heads up display. Before that, before we went to Scott's, the MSA, where was your air gauge? Was there any other way to see what the air pressure of your bottle, unless you got down and looked upside down at the actual pressure gauge that was at the bottom of the mask? What was our first indication that we were low on air? The bell's ringing. Not a good system. So then we went to these, where now it was vibro alert, but we had this that was hanging over the shoulder, where you could at least kind of see where your air supply was. Well, I had Aaron Ernsberger on my crew. My job as a company officer, manage my company's air supply. Who would I go up to see where our air was? the heaviest air sucker, the heavy breathers. Now Aaron could come in here and say, Aaron, I want all these tables thrown out this window. In about 5 minutes, he would have every table in here thrown out there. But what would he say afterwards? I'm out of air. We just got here. So he was the person that I was always going up, looking at this gauge. If Aaron was out of air, we had to leave, because I knew everybody else was good. Well, he was a very gigantic person. So I could just go up to him almost without leaning down, and I could look at that gauge. First of all, what did it look like in real life? Covered, I could barely read it. So I would come up to him, and it was like I was nursing on him. What's your hair, Aaron? And he'd like hug me. It's okay, Skip. It was a pain. Well, we got these heads-up air displays, and it made it a lot easier because I'd come up with Aaron, and then you could see the glow of it on his face. So you got a green glow, okay, you're good, Aaron. You got an orange glow, we might have to leave. Well, this third time I went up there, I kind of figured, he can see what I see. Why am I coming up here? Aaron, when you get 2 greens and this yellow one comes up, tap me on the shoulder and tell me you're at half your air. So it really kind of freed me from that umbilicus to air. And now a firefighter can actually see what their air supply was, so they can start managing it, anticipating when they should leave the hazard zone. So this was a huge improvement to me. Have you guys, the NFPA just came out with a new SCBA standard. It's like in March. You guys seen that? Well, the FDIC, I wanted to see the new SCBAs that were compliant. And the MSAs had these, what are the lights on the airplane? You know, the glow lights? They have them on the straps and on the back of it. So if you're green, the lights are green. If you're yellow, they're yellow. If you're on red, the red starts flashing. So not only do you see it now, everybody sees your air supply. So if somebody's in the hazard zone and they're glowing orange, say if they're on an exit close, you need to leave. So now everybody's aware of everybody's air. The emergency egress bottle, where are we here? This was a 5 to 10 minute small air cylinder that had a base piece and a regulator. If we're exiting the building low on air, and my firefighter gets in a very difficult entanglement, so there's 2 other people next to that firefighter, they're going to assist. Will they stay in there until they all 3 run out of air? Yes, they will. They're not going to leave unless they know Billy's okay. So what this was, is in all our drill sets, when we were doing a down firefighter, that crew was always running out of air because they would stick with that firefighter through thick and thin, and it's the same, if you go, we all go. And I hate saying this, but that was our attitude, and God bless us for having it. So what this was for is, we had 1 bottle per crew, and it was on the senior firefighter's SCBA. So now I got a down firefighter, difficult entanglement, we're all running out of air. I can pull this out, give that firefighter 5-10 more minutes of air, and now I feel comfortable leaving him, and I leave with my crew before the 2 of us die. And then somebody comes in and finishes that rescue. It's a great tool. But NIOSH came in right after I retired and said this was not approved, and that mask was approved by NIOSH, therefore we had to take it off. I would have given NIOSH the bird. I said, we're not taking it off, sue us. We never use these on a firefighter on a real incident, but we deploy them all the time. On who? Mrs. Smith. So you'd come to a downed, unprotected human. Now we have the ability to protect the airways. Did that open up the possibilities of how to get that person out of the building? Yeah. If it wasn't hot, you could now drag them through the products knowing that they were protected. Instead of doing the ladder throws, bringing down, difficult extrication, this really opened it up for us. But again, the only time we ever used it on a firefighter was on a drill. The company intercom system. You remember when, any old timers in here, when everybody on the emergency scene had to have portable radio? What do the old timers say about giving the kids a radio? We can't give it. They'll talk on it. Isn't that what they said? this is gonna be mayhem. It's already bad enough we can't communicate. Now we're gonna give everybody a radio? Was there ever a problem after that happened with a firefighter talking on the radio? It's almost like it's a hot potato, isn't it? They don't wanna touch it. But they will if they're having what? Mm-hmm. Well, when will they pull it out and say Mayday? When I've tried everything I could to save myself, and now I'm certain that if I don't do this, I'm gonna die. Well, the company intercom systems were closed circuit, walkie-talkie, just for that crew. We had 60 different frequencies, so no two would be the same in a fire. And now, I could just talk to my fearless leader without anybody else hearing it. And our thinking was that I'll get bumped off the line, and instead of all the self-rescue, I would just say, hey, I got bumped off the line, company officer would come, get him back on the line, and then they just keep on with their attack. Instead of that firefighter, minus the intercom, what would they do if they got bumped off the line? They wouldn't call me, they would wait until it was too late. So this gave us a better early warning system where a firefighter was more comfortable giving a little mini mayday to their company than just going out to the rest of the free world. Does a firefighter care socially what people think of them? Yeah, they do. They want to get close to the campfire next to you guys. So that's what this was for. It was like a pre-warning device, and then like everything else in the recovery, we'd get these and we'd go out and drill it. Well, a firefighter wouldn't talk on a portable radio, but they love talking on these. So I'm a company officer, I got the radio, I'm like Captain Hook. This is my hook hand because it's got a radio in it, and I have one free hand, and now I gotta use it to keep talking to the firefighters who feel good now. Oh, Skip, it's hot in here, isn't it? Oh, I won last night at Vegas. So through drilling, what we'd say is, hey man, don't tell me about your mood swings on this. What I want is critical information. Did you get bumped off the line? Or did we run out of water? So stay off the radio. We wouldn't have figured that out unless we went out and drilled thousands of hours with it. But I loved it because I was a truck company officer. The three of us would go to the roof, me and my two firefighters, and my two engineers were the ground guys. It connected me to those two people. So I didn't have to talk to them over the tactical channel. They would say, hey, I got utilities. We got the fan up. Your secondary means of egress, we just threw a ladder to the Bravo Charlie corner. So that when the ICU would call me, I could give PARs, I could give completion reports for my whole entire crew.